Excuse me, ma'am, sir. Permission to get techier than techie things around all things F1 because there are a couple threads, F1 centric threads, at which we need to pull. Max Verstappen's father, Jos, has talked about the season that was, the relationship between Lando Norris and his son, and whether that can ensue and proceed as friends going into 2025. Ferrari settings said that they're going to completely revamp the machinery going into 2022. So too, Frederick Vasseur, team principal Ferrari, saying that he's not concerned in the least, even not one iota, around Lewis Hamilton's qualifying pace or lack thereof. George Russell said many cycles ago that he thinks Max Verstappen should not have won. That indeed, if Lando Norris et al. And McLaren had capitalised on their opportunities to win races and so banked 25 points over the course of each and every single race weekend, then Lando Norris would have been Drivers' Championship. We will talk about that in 202 because it's getting techie, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot contain my excitement. Go on then. First up on the docket, let's talk about the livery launch set to happen on the 18th. I'm not sure I can get excited about that, but what I can get excited about is on the following day, Ferrari will unveil Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton in red overalls at Maranello. Oh, the humanity. Could you get more blockbuster than that if you tried? Lewis at Scuderia, you couldn't even write it in a book, for they wouldn't believe you. The symbiosis of the behemoth that is brand Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton, in conjunction with Scuderia Ferrari, will catapult that brand from a sports car into a luxury brand. It doesn't even make sense. That day, book it in the calendar already, February the 19th will be blockbuster for all of F1, for a rising tide floats all boats. It's going to get techie. Can you imagine Lewis coming out of that garage at Maranello in them red overalls with that yellow badge upon which there will be a black horse? What are we doing here? You can barely believe it. The vision is absolutely chaos, and the 2025 season, if not just because of that, will be blockbuster. Frederick Vasseur too said that he's not concerned about Lewis Hamilton's pace or lack thereof in quali. That some of those showings in, let's say, I don't know, a Las Vegas as an example, or an Abu Dhabi, some of the come from behind runs that Lewis has showed and proved, shows exactly. It's proof positive, no case in point, that Lewis Hamilton still is a fire-breathing dragon of an F1 driver. Although some F1 aficionados are chiming in saying that Lewis will have to adapt. He's got to learn the language. And again, he's going to put the hours in. But that is Sir Lewis Hamilton's modus operandi now. Able to outwork, outcommit. He will have to put in hundreds of thousands of miles in on the simulator. Of course, he's already had conversations with Charles Leclerc, and they appear to be good friends, dog owning buddies. Again, both of them have artistry. They love music, so there are parallels, common denominators, shared ground between the two of them. But again, it's going to get techie. And Christian Horner, who's already pulling on those Scuderia Ferrari red threads, saying that into 2025, it's going to be close convergent settings, meaning therefore that Scuderia, if they harbour aspirations to win themselves a driver championship, then they need to pick themselves a horse. It can't be both. They can't get 100% behind Charles Leclerc and 100% behind Lewis Hamilton, because if past his prologue PC, McLaren and the boys at the papaya coloured team, then that's the quickest, easiest way to lose yourself a championship. And George Russell talked about this, didn't he? And again, this is a phrase that I'm stealing from many cycles ago. I want to say that he said this at the Abu Dhabi race weekend, but here's what he said, quote, arguably Max is brilliant, he's exceptional, he hasn't missed barely at all any this season. However, arguably Max shouldn't have won the championship this year. This is George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk speaking. The others made a few more errors, he says, and didn't capitalise when they had chance. I feel that we as Mercedes have done what we could do, optimise for it. Of course, he's talking about McLaren. Now, some F1 aficionados say that between Lando and McLaren, they cost themselves anywhere circa 60 points over the course of the championship. We're talking about Silverstone, of course. We're talking about Hungary. We're talking about Monza, Austria too. That mistakes of the unforced variety characterised Lando Norris's championship. Indeed, I agree with George. No, I second that notion. I would see King George Russell of King's Lynn North at that and raise him this. McLaren became experts, so too Lando Norris, at seizing defeat from the Moors, no jaws of victory. He couldn't even execute for defensive posture of the line. Of the 8 or 9 times he dropped it on pole in 2024, I want to say only 7 of those did he make it to the line in first. He had an inability to consolidate his not insubstantial qualifying performance. He was quick, for Pete's sake, but he couldn't execute nor deliver upon that promise. So too, Max Verstappen's father, Jos Verstappen, has chimed in, speaking of whether his relationship, his son's relationship even, can continue with Lando Norris into 2025. Whether drivers' championship contenders and therefore rivals can indeed be friends. Jos Verstappen said it would be difficult, of course, over the long term. In longer form, Max and Lando want the same thing. It's going to be difficult for them to maintain that relationship, but Max knows what time it is. He understands where the lines are, and he's very mature in that sense, says Jos Verstappen. I get the impression that nowadays in 2024, the F1 drivers like to kiki. They like to go and get some paddling and then go to restaurants after Grand Prix to celebrate. They have that relationship, whereas Jos says back in the day, we would never do that. I didn't have any friends in F1 when I was an F1 driver. Now though, Max can do that, though Max critically understands the lines of delineation. Of course, you can be friends off the track, but when we get in the car and the visor goes down, Max Verstappen, for the avoidance of doubt, is now and has always been, will always be an absolute killer, because he wants nothing else than to win races and therefore championships. What are we doing here, ladies and gents? Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about Scuderia Ferrari going forward, they're saying that they're going to revamp the whole car. As far as their modus operandi, the way in which they want to operate going forward, it won't be a complete transgression from what we've seen in 2002 to 2024. Frederick Vasseur says that what he doesn't want to do, he doesn't want to reframe the team around Lewis Hamilton, hence why there will be no Bono departing from Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton will have to embed himself within that team already in place. How do we know this? Well, Frederick Vasseur didn't even go and sign. He didn't even negotiate with Adrian Newey, the last airbender. As brilliant as that dude is, they didn't want to destabilise what they have already in place. We know this as far as the design of the SF24, soon to be SF25, that as far as their rear suspension, they did not conform. They were all about pull rods at the back, were they not? All about them, when all the other teams stuck with push rods. That won't happen into next season. But I say all that to say this, that Ferrari are keen to plough their own furrow. And I don't know how I feel about that. Max Verstappen a couple cycles ago took the mick out of Ferrari and the way in which they operate, saying of his beef with race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase that we had it out once upon a time at Hungary, but that's the way that we like to communicate. I'd rather it be that than copy or we are checking, because those sort of messages don't add value to me in the cockpit in real time. And I echo those sentiments of Max Verstappen. There is something to be said for Scuderia Ferrari and them, like McLaren, the boys and girls in the papaya coloured team, seizing defeat so frequently from the Moors, no jaws of victory. They have that in their locker, do Ferrari. You remember a couple of years back, Monaco telling Charles Leclerc to come in a pit. No, don't come in the pit. They have a habit of making these errors, although if we're talking errors of the unforced variety, I might have to take 2 seats in my characterization even this year of modern day Jean Alesi. I saw a video on YouTube, Niall Bruce settings, one of the god tier ones, and he says that attributing 16 points as far as errors of the unforced variety to what Charles Leclerc has lost this season would be optimistic. 16 only. my mind was blown. That's how free of errors of the unforced variety Charles Leclerc has been this year. That, ladies and gentlemen, is case. And as a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan to the core, 2006, Maggots, Beckett's, Pizzioni, PK settings. As a fan of Lewis Hamilton, desperate to see him win an 8th championship next year, that fills me with woe and dread. I would argue, therefore, if we're not going to sacrifice truth value at the altar of partisanship, nor confirmation or recency bias, I would argue that Lewis Hamilton is going to Scuderia at the right time from a car perspective, at the wrong time from a I want to beat Charles Leclerc perspective. That dude, historically, if past his prologue, has always had an error of the unforced variety in his locker. Now, however, as I challenged him to do, he's trending those to zero. Of course, there are still some. Abu Dhabi qualifying as an example. Baku in free practice, yeeting it into the bloody barrier, costing him ultimately the 25 points that weekend. Some might say the errors are not zero, but he's trending them towards zero. I pray to the hypothetical racing gods that Lewis Hamilton would have moved there, let's say 24 months ago. Then he could have gotten one over of Charles Leclerc. Now going into 2025, I would argue, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, with Sir Lewis Hamilton cap firmly on, that the biggest fire-breathing dragon that Lewis Hamilton is going to have to slave for in 2025 is not Maximilian Verstappen, nor is it Lando Norris, nor will it be King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk. That fire-breathing dragon has a name, ladies and gentlemen, and its name is modern-day Jean Alesi, aka Charles Leclerc. What are we doing?